Did you hear that 91% of guys that use Dove Men Plus Care antiperspirant recommend it? Dove Men Plus Care user Daniel said that his armpits aren't the worst thing at the gym anymore. Make the locker room a better place and pick up some new Dove Men Plus Care for your gym bag at your local retailer.
Finally, after all the hype, all of which was self-serving and most of it thoroughly distasteful, two men will step into a ring in Las Vegas tomorrow night and settle absolutely nothing. Booger McFarland is in for Golic today, and here is the question, Booger, that I have for you is, I guess it's really two questions. One, are you going to buy the fight as I am? And B, do you feel like an idiot for doing it as I do?
Well, no, I'm not going to buy the fight. I'm going to be a little bit smarter than you. I'm going to go over a friend's house. They're buying the fight and they're cooking. And they invited me and my wife, so we're going over to enjoy their fight on their TV with their ribs and chicken.
Fair enough. That's well played in every conceivable way. But let's just say, for the sake of argument, you were like me and had no friends, and you were thus quarantined to your own home. Would you buy the fight? Well, I guess what I'm trying to ask you is, everything inside of me says this thing is it's a sham, it's a joke. They're making a mockery of at least one, if not two sports, and they are two people that are impossible to root for. Conor McGregor has done the impossible over the last few months, and that is that he has made me root for Floyd Mayweather, which I didn't think I had it in me to do. And yet I'm going to watch it. There was something about this that has drawn me in a way that I cannot explain, in a way that I think will make sense to anyone but myself. But I can't not watch this.
You know, Green, I think it's a couple of things. I think it's where it falls in the sports calendar. I think right now NFL football hasn't started. The big weekend in college football is next weekend. So it falls at a time on the sports calendar when it's very easy to look at and very easy to watch. And then number two, it's always about the what if, man. What if Conor McGregor somehow lands a punch? What if Floyd is slipping on his game? Just what if? I think back to some of the great sporting events that we missed or I missed just because you say, yeah, I know what's going to happen in that one. Mike Tyson, Buster Douglas.
Right.
Okay. The U.S. against the Soviet Union. You say, yeah, I already know what's going to happen. And you miss something that's absolutely historically great. What if it happens? Now, I agree with you. I think it's going to be just a snore fest. I think Mayweather is the greatest fighter of this time. I think he's a guy who he's made a living on defense. He's been a defensive fighter his entire career. And all the examples that he's given us shows us that that's not going to change against Conor McGregor. But what if, though? What if? I think the what if is the one thing that has us wanting to watch this fight.
Yeah, and look, I'm going to argue against myself because the what if is, if McGregor beats him, what exactly does that even mean? This isn't McGregor losing to Pacquiao in his prime. This isn't McGregor losing to De La Hoya in his prime. This is Mayweather, coming out of retirement for a payday, and everyone knows it's that, spending the entire week, from what I'm reading, in strip clubs. This is how he's preparing for this fight. Cashing a guaranteed $300 million check, it sounds to me like, on the low end. And then if he didn't really take it seriously and loses to Conor McGregor, what does it really mean? I don't know. I don't know that it actually means anything. Is it Buster Douglas beating Tyson? Is it the U.S. beating the Soviet Union? Is it really an upset on that level? Because I don't think it has the historical ramifications that those things do.
No, it doesn't, because you don't have two guys that are in the same discipline. But, Greeny, what it is, it's Floyd Mayweather, the greatest fighter of our time. Like, he's the greatest fighter I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And it's in his discipline. This is boxing. Okay, forget how big the gloves are, whether they're 6 ounces, 8 ounces, like whatever the gloves are going to be. This is the greatest fighter of our time in his discipline, in his house, in his backyard in Las Vegas. And now you're taking on a guy from a different sport, a sport that's trying to take over your sport. Okay, UFC, MMA, like that whole mixed martial arts thing. There was a point in time where Dana White was basically trying to push boxing out of the way. So to me, it's a little bit bigger than just saying, hey, here's Floyd Mayweather, the greatest fighter of our time, against Conor McGregor. And these are two despicable human beings. This is a situation where a sport in which Dana White is trying to push to the forefront, okay, mixed martial arts, UFC, against boxing, against the greatest guy that we've seen. So to me, there's a historical preference from that avenue that maybe a lot of people aren't talking about.
That's a good point. I do. And so you could say that Floyd Mayweather is fighting for the sanctity of boxing, and the only thing I'd say about that is he doesn't care. I don't believe for a second that Floyd Mayweather cares about anything beyond his own money and his own self, and that's fine. But I do agree that will, like I heard Teddy Atlas talking about this, and that's a person who I'll listen to on the subject. Teddy Atlas saying he's a little bit afraid because it would of what it would do to boxing and the reputation or whatever of boxing if Floyd were to lose this fight, which I think there is practically no chance. You were on one of the great defenses of all time. You won a Super Bowl with the Buccaneers in 2003?
Yes.
2003.
Yep.
And so if your 2003 Buccaneers had played the 2000 Ravens, right? So they had a great defense. You had a great defense. They didn't have a whole lot of offense. You didn't have a whole lot of offense. What would have happened in that game?
Well, I think it would have been a snore fest. It would have been entertaining.
Don't tell Golick that. Golick would have said it would have been the greatest game of all time. These defensive guys would have loved it. It would have been 6-3.
But from an entertainment standpoint, if you don't like defense, it'll be boring to you. One of the greatest games I've ever seen is the LSU-Alabama game that was 9-6, I believe. There was not a touchdown scored. Everyone said, this is terrible. This is bad ratings. It was one of the greatest games you've ever seen because if you understand the intricacies of how defensive football is played, it was outstanding. The talent level was way up. And I think that when you look at it at two guys that are two teams that are defensive teams, you have to kind of be an expert of what you're watching. You have to be an expert of football or an expert of boxing. A lot of people don't appreciate Floyd Mayweather. Okay, he's one of the great fighters we've ever seen. He just does it in a different way. He's not a knockout artist. He's flamboyant. He could have been a wide receiver because two things matter to Floyd: him and his money.
Exactly.
Those are the two things that matter to him. But I appreciate him because it takes a lot to be technically and fundamentally sound in your craft, and to go out there 49 times, Greeny. He's rarely been hit. I can only think of one time that he really was in trouble in the ring. Zab Judah had him in trouble in the ring. Somebody as quick as him, a lefty, had him in trouble. Zab was not in shape that day. Zab couldn't finish. I don't think McGregor is anywhere near what Zab Judah was, which is why a lot of people think this is going to be just kind of, hey, go get some wings. Is it over yet? No, let's go back. Bring the ribs, too. Like, everybody's going to be having a good time, and maybe the fight will be on in the background.
Fight's going to be on pretty late. You're eating that late? I mean, you're eating ribs at like 11:30 at night?
Here's the deal, Greeny. What you have to do is you have to understand when the end is, and then you start at the beginning. So I know what time this fight is going to be. So my tea time is not going to be at 8 a.m.
Gotcha.
I'm going to push the tea time. I'm going to push the tea on Saturday and Sunday. I'm going to push the tea time up a little bit. So instead of being at 8 on Saturday, it's probably going to be at around 11. So the day will just get pushed back, okay? Mm-hmm. The lunch portion of the snack will be the early dinner at 7. And then the real dinner will happen during the fight at around 11:30.
You are just a beautiful person. You really are. Somehow I manage always to be sitting in here with people who can explain food to me in a way that I couldn't possibly comprehend. All right, let's go through off the top here. Let's go through the sports from last night, and then we'll look ahead a little more to the fight. I got a lot for you in the hopper today, but the Dodgers picked up their 90th win of the season yesterday in their 126th game, tied for the fourth fastest in the World Series era. Now, there have been a lot of injuries and all that kind of stuff. Right now, because Booger is a baseball fan, do you believe the Dodgers will back this thing up as the Cubs did a year ago and win the World Series?
No, I like the Washington Nationals. I think when you look at the pitching staff, obviously the Dodgers making the trade for Yu Darvish, everybody's giving them a heads up depending on the health of Clayton Kershaw, but I just feel like it's the Washington Nationals' time, man. Strasburg, Scherzer, those guys. I like the Washington Nationals.
Off the top.
Meanwhile, for the second time this year, Chris Sale got bombed by the Indians. The Red Sox and Indians are very likely to meet up in the first round of the American League playoffs. And Chris Sale, who will probably win the Cy Young Award, has a 2.32 ERA against everybody else, has an ERA of over 14.5 against the Indians. So how do we explain that? It's two starts. So do you chalk that up to just 2 bad days, or do you think that you look at that and say, Booger, they've got his number. They take game one of a playoff series in a huge win against Chris Sale?
Well, Green, I'll take it a step further. In his career, Sale is 5-8 with a 4.78 ERA against the Indians. That's his highest ERA against any team that he's faced 3 or more times in his career. So maybe it is just the Indians. I know one thing. If Boston is going to go where they want to go, which is the World Series championship, Sale and David Price have to be at their optimal level.
Off the top.
What else have we got? In the year of the home run, there were several big ones hit yesterday, including Giancarlo Stanton. He's 3 home runs away from the 9th season in baseball history with 50 home runs before the month of September begins. That statistic courtesy of the Elias Sports Bureau. How closely are you watching Giancarlo Stanton, and how interested are you in whether he gets to 60?
I am, and I'm trying to pay as much attention to Giancarlo as we pay to Aaron Judge, because Giancarlo has been doing for the last several years what Aaron Judge did for half a season. And if we're going to give Aaron Judge and all hail and all rise, you best be paying attention to what that young man is doing down in Miami, because he's been doing it a lot longer than Aaron Judge.
Off the top.
Well said. All right, Cam Newton played last night. Played one series for the Panthers, but it was significant in that it was his first preseason action, and it was significant in that they went 10 plays and 75 yards, and he threw a touchdown to Kelvin Benjamin. Did you get to see Cam last night?
Yes, I've been very critical of Cam. I think this is a huge year for Cam Newton. Okay, last year was a disappointment. The year before, he was the MVP. They went out, they've got him another weapon in Christian McCaffrey. What can Cam Newton do now to improve two things? Because I believe two things make a quarterback, Greeny: decision-making and accuracy, and Cam Newton has struggled with both in his career.
Off the top.
Much more football as we continue, but finally the wagers are rolling in on Floyd Mayweather. If you heard earlier this week, we had Jay Root on from MGM telling us that Vegas had an enormous liability if McGregor were to win, because they just couldn't find anybody to bet on Floyd at the numbers that he was sitting at. Well, now they got two huge bets in Vegas, $1 million bet and a $1.2 million bet on Floyd. So my question to you is, if you had to bet an amount of money on this fight that mattered to you, would you even consider putting it on anything besides Mayweather winning in the first 3 rounds? That's where the shortest odds are. If I told you right now you could get good odds on McGregor still to be standing when the 4th round starts, would you take it?
Yes, because Floyd.
4th round?
Yes, because Mayweather has never been a guy who wanted to come out and finish you early. A defensive fighter allows the fight to come to him. And this is what's going to be kind of tricky about this fight, Greeny, is because Floyd Mayweather is one of the best counterpunchers out there. Where in order to counterpunch, the other guy has to come at you. Is Conor going to do that? Like, we don't know what kind of boxing style Conor has because we've never seen it. So that'll be an interesting part of this fight.
Off the top.
And that is Off the Top with us. Mike and Mike. Booger McFarland's in for the big fella today. We are presented by Progressive Insurance. You could save hundreds on your car, your business, or your recreational vehicle insurance from a local independent agent. Go to Progressive.com today. Now that's Progressive. But before, you know what, let me get to the fight here, and then I'll bring in the fact that, stunningly, you are a man who lives in Florida, and yet you seem to be afraid of water in ways
Not
that
afraid.
You're afraid of water.
No, I just like to be prepared when water's around.
Here's the thing. All right, so now we're going to go there. So I've joined this new golf club, and I cannot wait to bring Booger there.
Yes.
And it's the Bayonne Golf Club in Bayonne, New Jersey. And the way that you get there from New York is you take you on a little ferry.
Yeah.
They have a boat that takes you there, which has become a very common way for people who live in New York or who live in New Jersey and work in New York to go back and forth rather than drive through a tunnel or over a bridge. They have all these boats going across the Hudson now, which is great. And so I'm telling them about this great boat we're going to take. We're going to go over there. We're going to play. We're going to have a great time. And your first question to me was?
Do they have life jackets?
Life jackets. It's a ferry. It's a ferry.
It's on water.
We're not going like on a little putt-putt boat. It's not going to be like you and me, and I'm not pulling on the thing.
Greeny.
There's going to be a guy driving it. There's a bar on the boat. I mean, this is what we're talking about.
Here's the one thing I can guarantee you. This little ferry is not as big as the Titanic was.
No, I understand
the Titanic went down, Greeny.
In the middle of the ocean. We're in the Hudson River.
No, the Titanic went down.
I got that.
And so I'm telling you that no matter how large or small the apparatus is, it can go down.
Here's what I'm telling you. My man Tommy isn't sinking to the bottom of the Hudson River, and if he did, we could see it. It's the Hudson River.
Listen.
Okay? You could swim from one end to the other in like 10 minutes.
Stop right there.
Did you see what was the name of the movie, Sully?
Yes.
That's the body of water I'm talking about.
I understand that. Stop right there. So you said one thing that's, although I can survive, swimming is a little iffy. I'm a survivor.
Swimming is the challenge.
Yeah, well, exactly. I'm not afraid of the water. Like, I get in the water. I have a pool in my backyard.
Yeah.
My pool is 6 feet deep, so I can go to the bottom and stand up. When you custom build a pool, you build the pool to your specification.
It's a wading pool, basically.
No, it's 6 feet deep. I go to the bottom and stand up. And my kid's like, Daddy, you can't swim? I was like, no. It's like, why are you in the pool? So I had to explain to them how I can get in the pool and play with them all day, and we can have some fun.
So that's good. Obviously, water safety is extremely important.
Yes.
But let me ask you this. You're getting on a ferry. Just to be clear, this is a large boat. It is not a small boat.
Okay.
And your first question is, where are the life jackets?
Yeah, where are the life jackets?
When you get on an airplane, is your first question, where are the parachutes?
No, because I know the lady is going to tell me they're under the seat, and then the oxygen mask is
I don't know where
down.
the parachutes are. There's no parachute under your seat.
Not necessarily a parachute,
your
but
seat
life
is a
jacket.
flotation device.
Whatever, Greeny. But I know where the things that are going to help me survive. I know where they are.
If we have to jump out of this plane in the middle of the flight, there are probably parachutes. I don't know where they are.
I mean, the plane has flotation devices. I'm assuming the boat has them also. So it's not a crazy question for me to ask, where are the things that are going to help me survive if we have a situation that we are not looking for?
I'm not suggesting that it isn't a normal thing for you to want to know. I am suggesting that when I'm telling you with excitement about my new golf club
and I love
how
it.
We're going to go over there and play, your first question is, do they have life jackets on the ferry boat? That being your first question, before you ask me about the fairways, the greens, or anything else, that strikes me as a tad on the afraid side.
I know you're a man of great taste, so I have no idea that the fairways are going to be pristine. The golf course is going to be lovely. The greens are going to roll.
The greens,
the greens are going to roll 13, and we're going to play the new TP5 and TP5X. I have no doubt about all of that.
Correct.
But the one thing I am concerned before we get, if we never arrive to this Bayonne Golf Club, we can't play it.
I understand.
I have to arrive safely, which is why I'm asking about the boat.
If somehow the ferry sinks in the middle of the Hudson River with the Statue of Liberty right above us.
Yes.
Okay, I think we'll be just fine. Mike and Mike presented by Progressive Insurance. We're going to have to get some sort of psychiatric assistance from Mr. McFarland today. And we will also have on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line among our guests, DeMaurice Smith, the Executive Director of the NFL Players Association. There are a bunch of things I want to ask him about, primarily. I saw a bunch of people debating yesterday whether or not there is any legal remedy for Colin Kaepernick, whichever side of the Kaepernick debate you fall on.
Right.
And you and I have talked about this. I thought your tweet yesterday was beautiful, actually. I really did. Let's actually get into that a little bit in a minute. But whatever side of the Kaepernick debate you fall on, I am fascinated by the question of, is there a legal remedy for him? I believe that what we have here, this is my own personal opinion, is 32 individual blackballings. I believe he's being blackballed. He is not being blackballed by 32 teams. He's being blackballed by 30. He's being blackballed 32 times, once apiece, which is different. So if I thought the owners had gotten together and all taken an oath, and pricked their fingers and signed it in blood and said none of us are going to sign him, then I could see where there would be a legal remedy. If each individual owner is just deciding I don't want him on my team because I don't like what he did or because I don't feel like inviting whatever controversy it's going to bring or whatever the reason is, I'm not expert enough to know if he has any legal remedy or not. And I've seen a bunch of people arguing on Twitter, both some saying yes and some saying no. So I don't know what the reality of it is. But D. Smith will know because he is a lawyer and he runs the union. So I am really looking forward to asking him that.
Well, I don't think there are any legal ramifications because you have 32 clubs that have the right to pick and choose who they hire. This isn't a situation where legally, they are doing something they are not allowing him to.
That's what I'm asking you. I don't know because they have the plausible deniability that he's not so good at football, that if he was Aaron Rodgers or something. But here's the thing: they cannot argue. No one could argue that there are however many quarterbacks there currently are employed by the National Football League.
Probably around 90.
No one could argue that he's the 91st best quarterback in the world. That's not a real argument.
Correct.
So the thing is, they couldn't not let him play because he was black. They couldn't not let him play because he was gay if he was gay. They couldn't not let him play for a lot of other reasons, right? There are laws prohibiting that even in a private enterprise. So I don't know where that ends. Do you know what I'm saying? I'm not a lawyer. I don't pretend to be, so I don't have the answer to that. But there certainly are some employment laws that would protect him. So my question is, in this case, where they seem to find him, I'm not even sure what word it is.
Can you prove that he's being discriminated
Correct.
against?
That's the question. Can the union do anything?
No,
I don't know.
No.
I mean, my logical sense says I agree with you completely. Right. But if that is the case, then the union can't do anything.
Here's where we are on Colin Kaepernick, in my opinion. I think we've gotten to a point where, at its height, everyone was paying attention and everyone wanted to see where it went. Then it went through a long period of time where there were a couple of opportunities out there and no one signed him, namely the Baltimore, namely Seattle. Two opportunities where there was a little buzz that Colin Kaepernick may get signed by Seattle, may get signed by Baltimore, and nothing happened. And then something very interesting happened. You had the first really owner come out and really admit, Steve Bisciotti admitted, I'm torn. He even asked for prayer. Like, he was that torn, and I thought it was a very vulnerable moment. Now, I didn't agree with him. Now, you're a guy who's running a multi-billion-dollar organization, and you make decisions every day. Why do you need prayer about this one? So I thought on one hand he was trying to save face publicly, but he was one of the first ones to openly talk about it. And I think we reached that point. Now we're at a point right now where when you hear Shady McCoy talk, I think Shady is very sincere. When Shady talked about it would be a distraction. Because here's where you are right now. If you don't need him on your team, the moment even if you need him, the moment he shows up, everyone's got to start to answer the question. And I'm not a big distraction guy. I think distractions for professionals are really an excuse. You're a professional. You're a grown man. Deal with it. So that's the way I believe in distractions. But I think Shady McCoy brings a point. If you do not want to deal with the Colin Kaepernick circus, it's not a distraction. It's just an added responsibility that his new team would have. And I think some of the guys have enough on their plate right now that they'd rather not deal with that. And that's not anything against Colin Kaepernick. I think we've reached a time right now where guys are like, I'm not going to say they're tired of it, but guys are like, we've been doing this for 6 months. Okay, let's go play football right now. It's obvious what the NFL owners are doing. They don't want him on their team. That's obvious, okay? I don't think it's 31 blackballings or 32. I think for different reasons, different teams have said, you know what, he's not a good fit for us. Okay, New England's reason may be different than Jacksonville's reason. That's different than the New York Jets' reason. But everybody has their reason. And I think people right now are just at a point where saying, you know what, we know he's not wanted. The football players are just saying, let's go play football. Some of the activists are even getting tired of it.
Listen, I don't know if they are or they aren't, but what I do know is that if he wants to play football, he's not being given the opportunity to do it. And I'm really curious to know whether the union that represents him has any way
do you think
of
that's
fighting
going to
for
change?
him. No,
Is
I
that
don't
gonna
think
change?
so.
Exactly.
No, I don't. But
Right.
that's why we'll ask him,
Right.
what can you do? The answer I don't think he'll say the answer is nothing, that we can do nothing. But I'm curious to hear what he thinks they can do, because I don't know what the answer to the question is. I think the union can do almost nothing. But we'll find out. That's the reason to have him
on. And on top of that, with D. Smith has got some other things that he's got to deal with, because there are rumblings amongst the players, both past and present, that this new election that's coming up, this guy Cyrus Mary, there are a lot of rumblings that, like, D. Smith he's going to have his hands full with this election, especially if it gets to that point.
Yeah, we're a long way away from the next collective bargaining agreement. So, yeah, there's that on the table as well. So we'll do all that as the morning continues. We got Booger here. We're going to make sure that he's, comfortable on any boat or any sort of aquatic device that we can come up with. Anywhere.
Floaties would be nice, too, if
we'll
they have
get you a pair of floaties. I can't imagine how big the floaties would have to be. I don't have enough air in me to blow up the floaties that would keep you afloat.
Hey everyone, Mike Golick here. Support for the Mike and Mike podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Chances are you're confident when it comes to your work, your hobbies, your life. Rocket Mortgage gives you that same level of confidence when it comes to buying a home or refinancing your existing home loan. Rocket Mortgage is simple, allowing you to fully understand all the details and be confident you're getting the right mortgage for you. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Mikes. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLS, consumeraccess.org number 3030.
Guys don't really talk about antiperspirant. Despite that, 91% of Dove Men Plus Care users recommend it. Here's what they said.
It blocks the, perspiration, I think is the fancy word.
It's comfortable. It smells nice. My girl likes the smell.
Well, it's hard.
I think it's quite masculine. My underarms aren't the worst thing at the gym.
It's kind of like the Hoover Dam from my armpits, I guess.
Dove Men Plus Care Antiperspirant. Tough on sweat, not on skin.
All right, we're Mike and Mike. Booger McFarland is in for Golick today. A lot of Twitter reaction on a variety of different topics in the 1-800-Flowers.com Twitter feed, and a lot of it has to do with the life jackets on the ferry and the parachutes on the airplane. So Aaron tweets, you cannot jump out of a commercial flight from 30,000 feet even with a parachute and survive. I'm just going to take Aaron's word for that. I really I really don't know, and I'm hoping that I never have to find out.
Exactly.
I did not think it was a bad comparison to make. If you get on a ferry, a large ship, like have you ever been on a cruise, like the Love Boat or anything?
Yes.
So do you ask where the life jackets are?
Yes.
You do?
The first time I took my kids on a Disney cruise,
I
wasn't terrified, but I did tell I guess you call it the ship cruise director, like he came around and was real, happy and jolly. And I was like, hey, by the way, do they have life jackets in every room? And he just started laughing at him. He's like, yeah, they do. So, yes, I need to know where they are.
Yeah, what happens, I think, is that Mickey Mouse comes and hands them out in the case of any problems.
Donald
No
Duck
issues.
does that.
One of the animals does. Little but Talawa. Why do I bother reading? Stop giving me people's handles if they're confusing.
Just don't read them.
The Staten Island ferry went down in New York just a few years ago.
Boom, right there. There it is.
I do remember that.
Yes.
But when the Staten Island ferry, you have to understand, like you could just grab onto the Verrazano Bridge. I mean, you have no idea how narrow the body of water we're talking about here is.
Greenie.
Yeah.
I need a life jacket.
Okay, we'll get you. We'll get one with your name on it. David Johnson tweets: if the ferry sinks, Greenie will take Booger's life jacket for his clubs. I won't have to because the clubs stay there. But yes, in the event of emergency, save the new putter.
Exactly.
I've got a new putter right now that if that thing goes down, I've got a real problem.
I like it.
And finally, Martin Cam tweets: surprise, no parachutes on planes, but all ferries are required to have life vests. No reason to worry as signs are posted.
Love it.
All right, so we will make sure you get there safely.
Can't wait.
No problem. Okay, strangest headline ever. I can't believe this actually happened, but it is actually a screen grab. So yesterday at the Indians game at Progressive Field, they put up, like a This Day in Indians History.
Right.
Anyone who's been to a baseball game knows they put stuff up there between innings to keep you occupied, and you might be trivia questions and all that kind of stuff. So they put this up there, and we looked this up. It's actually happened. Not that I would have questioned the veracity of something that was on the scoreboard. On this day in Indians history, so August 24th, 1919, Indians pitcher Ray Caldwell was struck by lightning with 2 outs in the 9th inning and the Tribe leading the Athletics 2-1. Caldwell was knocked unconscious, then revived, went on to retire Joe Dugan on a ground ball to end the game. That is the strangest thing I've ever heard in my entire life. The story then goes on to say the Society for American Baseball Research has a lengthier story. After the game, Caldwell told the Cleveland Press, the lightning strike, quote, felt like someone came up with a board and hit me on top of the head and knocked me down. He assessed the damage, found he had slight burns on his chest. Speculation was that lightning had hit the metal button on his cap, surged through his body, and exited through his metal spikes.
Wow.
So this guy got hit by lightning with 2 outs in the 9th. The lightning hit the little metal thing on the top of his cap, went through his body, singed his chest, went out through his metal spikes. He collapsed, gets up, retires another batter, and walks off with the win.
If I didn't know any better, I'd call that fake news.
Well, I mean, what do we – I can't – I have a hard time believing they would just be making this up. This was Ray Caldwell. It was August 24th, 1919.
Greenie, there was a guy who got struck by lightning on the tarmac in Florida, and he got severe burns and had to go to the hospital. Not only did he not go to the hospital, he's out there throwing sliders.
Yes, apparently he retired Joe Wood to end the game. Now, I don't know if he would have stayed in there if there were multiple innings left, but
right.
I mean, this was a time when pitchers finished games.
Yeah,
they took it awfully seriously back then. I don't care if I got hit by lightning, knocked unconscious, and I got third-degree burns on my chest.
Right.
I'm not leaving this game until there's 27 outs.
Yeah, and then he probably threw 7 innings the next day also.
Absolutely.
That's what they did.
So, I mean, that's it. These guys can't even pitch every 4 days anymore. This guy was getting hit by lightning. Look, we've got for those of you watching on ESPN2, we've got the newspaper stories of it. Thunderbolt puts Ray Caldwell down, but he wins game.
Where's the players union when you need them back there?
Seriously. Okay, where's Don? Get Marvin Miller on the phone. We can't have guys getting hit by lightning and finishing games. Come on, we live in an age of player safety. All right, we got Floyd tomorrow night against Conor, McGregor and Mayweather. The build up to this thing. You knew it would be crazy.
Yeah.
It's been 1,000 times worse than I thought. Mm-hmm. It's been so distasteful. It's everything about it has just been horrible. Mm-hmm. I would love to. I believe that it is my job to watch it. I'm going to be here Monday morning, and I believe that it is my job to have seen the fight so that I can talk about what happened. But even if it wasn't my job, I would want to watch this because the little kid in me who used to sit there, my brother and I, we watched wrestling all the time, and we would always say, do you think Andre the Giant could beat Muhammad Ali? And then it would eventually turn into, do you think that the Fonz could beat up Danny Zuko from Greece? And any number of ridiculous, anyone could fight anyone, and who would win? It's the age-oldest question in the world. I need to have this answered here. I need to watch it. And while I find Conor McGregor, I don't follow MMA closely. I find his behavior throughout the entirety of the build-up to this thing just despicable. I still think that the most interesting potential outcome of this fight is if he wins. If he does land some kind of miracle punch and knocks Floyd out.
Well, I think the likelihood of that happening is slim and none. And, Slim is probably somewhere traveling across the Hudson in a ferry right now.
Very good.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well done.
So I love it. There we go.
Yeah.
But we watch Greeny because there are very few times in life where events happen that bring multiple compartments of society together. Usually everybody kind of sticks to their thing. If you're a football guy or you're a basketball guy or whatever you are, this is a fight between two guys from two different countries, two different genres in sports, and neither one of them are really that liked. But from an entertainment standpoint, it's late at night, especially on the East Coast, and it's going to bring a group of adults together who we're going to pick one side or the other.
Yeah.
People across the country in Ireland, where Conor McGregor is heritage at, they're going to be rooting for him regardless of how you feel about him. And so it's one of those rare events that's going to bring more than one compartment of people together around the world. And I think that's why it's going to get a lot of hype, and that's why it's going to sell a lot of pay-per-view buys.
There's no question of that. So Floyd Mayweather is guaranteeing the outcome. You will hear that from him. Teddy Atlas has one way that Conor McGregor could emerge the winner. You'll hear that from him coming up next. And then we'll get into what LeBron said yesterday, because he was both right and wrong, in my opinion, at the same time.
Sports fans anywhere can earn a nationally recognized degree from Penn State online. Whether you're starting or finishing your degree, study where and when it's convenient for you. Choose from more than 125 programs to become a top prospect in your field and advance your career. Learn more at worldcampusinfo.com. Penn State World Campus, a world of possibilities, online. Visit worldcampusinfo.com today. That's worldcampusinfo.com.
Quickly, before we get to Floyd Mayweather and Teddy Atlas, Mac tweets at us. Because, again, Booger is afraid to go on the ferry with me to my new golf club. He's afraid of the ferry.
I'm not afraid of the ferry. I just want to know where the life jackets are. There's a difference in those two things.
And Mac tweets, if the ferry sank, would Greeny let Booger on to the floating debris? I hate this movie. I hate everything about this movie. Nothing more than this song. This is the most annoying song in the history of songs.
Yes, but answer the question, though.
Listen, you take up so much more space than Leonardo DiCaprio. He's got this huge floating piece of like half the boat is sitting there in the middle of the ocean.
Would you let me on?
If there was room, I'd let you on.
Would you grab my hand and let me on? With the rain coming down, would you save me?
Was that actually rain, or was that just like the ocean flying around them? The mist of the undertow, or whatever it is, the suction from the Titanic being sunk down to the bottom of the ocean with a diamond that's not in it because Kate Winslet has it in her pocket, for crying out loud. And there's more than enough room, and they get rescued 4 seconds later. She's blowing on a whistle. There's a whistle, but we don't have room for Leo on this thing. It's the most ridiculous ending to a movie that just goes on forever. If this is a spoiler alert, I'm saving you 4 hours of your life that you will never get back, because the movie is 3 hours long, and you'll spend the next hour being furious at yourself for having wasted those 3 hours. So I'm actually saving you 4 hours. Don't, under any circumstances,
just
go see
reach out
Titanic.
And grab my hand, Big Fast. That's all I want. Just grab my hand. Just grab it and save me.
If the Bayonne ferry goes down, I will give you the lifeguard. What is that thing? What is the lifeguard thing where they swim you back to safety?
Idea.
I'm a good swimmer.
Yes.
The lifeguard hold? Okay. I will lifeguard hold you back to the Jersey side.
You are the king of the world, Greeny.
I'm exactly right. Oh, well played. Okay, we're Mike and Mike. Let's do some Straight Talk now. It's brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contracts. Let's hear from Floyd. Floyd Mayweather guarantees that he's going to do something he hasn't done in a long time, and that is he is going to knock out Conor McGregor.
Same way he's talking about he's giving it. Hopefully, he can take it this way. But once again, remember what I said. 100% chance this fight won't go the distance.
100% chance the fight won't go the distance. Here's the thing. I don't know Floyd Mayweather at all, personally. But he doesn't strike me as the kind of guy who wants to play games here.
Right.
So I think the likeliest outcome, if all these guys are right, all right, we'll play you Teddy Atlas here in a second, but if Max Kellerman is right and all of the boxing people that we know, even Manny Pacquiao, who says he thinks this fight is going to be boring, and if anyone would know, he would, because the last fight he was in, 2 fights ago, or whenever it was that he fought Floyd, it was excruciating. But he says it's going to be boring. If that's true, and Mayweather really can take this guy out whenever he wants to, he strikes me as the kind of guy who will quickly, right? And he'll just be like, okay, all this talk, let me just show everybody. Boom, 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 boom. Thank you. Give me my $300 million. Good night.
But that goes against everything that he is, which is he's a defensive fighter. He's a counterpuncher. Like, he's never been the guy that's been the aggressor. And I think when you look at this situation, the one thing I know that Floyd loves more than money, and that's the zero. That's the zero at the end of his name, Green.
Yeah,
he loves that more than any amount of money. Like, if you told Floyd, hey, Floyd, if you lose this fight and win the next one and we have a trilogy, you can make $1 billion in 3 fights, he wouldn't do it because he wouldn't want to lose. That's the one thing when you have somebody of his personality. He's always wanting to brag that zero is the most important thing. So, Greeny, I think what he's going to do is do what he's always done. If it's not broke, don't fix it. He's always been a guy who's been slow to start. Let the fight come in the first couple rounds, and then once he figures out whether the guy, the opposition, has enough hand speed to match him, then he goes to work. I think right now he's going to know that Conor McGregor doesn't have the speed, the hand speed, or the foot speed to fight him. So, yes, he may start a little early, but I do not expect a knockout in the first 3 rounds. If anything, Floyd wins maybe in round 7, 8, or 9. You got to realize Conor is in great shape. He's just not in great shape to go 36 minutes of boxing. He's in great shape early on. The fatigue factor will happen in the latter rounds where Floyd can knock him out with body shots or shots to the head or whatever.
How does Conor McGregor emerge the winner? It's an interesting question, and here's a very interesting answer from our Teddy Atlas.
Plan A or Plan B might be for him to come in low or kick or whatever, get Floyd on the floor, pound and ground him, win, get disqualified, pay the fines, put his arms up in the air, and proclaim himself the emperor of the universe in all combat sports. And you know what? Who knows? He might even have a signed contract with some bad boy promotional company that's paying him $20 million if he does that. And even if he doesn't do it, his brand, he loses. Technically. He wins, though. His brand goes through the roof.
I mean, I guess it makes sense. Right?
You may be quicker than Conor McGregor, Greeny. Like when you watch these little highlight tapes, and they show Floyd on the speed bag, like, I'm amazed at how fast his hands can move. I watch Conor McGregor and I'm thinking, maybe I could do that. Like, maybe you can honestly move your hands. Like, his hands aren't moving fast. And in order to beat Floyd Mayweather, in order to touch him, forget about beat him. In order to touch him, you have to have hand speed. That's the one thing that every boxing analyst has said all along. In order to beat this man, you're going to have stamina. You're going to have power. But more than anything, you must have quickness. Because Floyd Mayweather is a defensive fighter who is as quick as we've ever seen. McGregor doesn't have the quickness. That's why Max Kellerman is saying, if he doesn't want to get touched, he's not going to get touched.
Right.
Because McGregor is just not quick enough.
That is Max's take on this thing. And again, I defer to him. He knows a lot more about boxing than I do. And Max's basic take on this is if Mayweather doesn't want to get hit a single time, he won't.
Yeah.
Look, that actually would be entertaining to watch. Like, there's a defensive football game, to go back to our previous analogy, might not always be the most exciting thing, but a defensive masterpiece is. Like, the 85 Bears were fun to watch. Your Buccaneers defenses were fun to watch. The 2000 Ravens and a few others, the Broncos a couple of years ago, were fun to watch. So if Floyd does that, if he basically pitches a perfect game, if he doesn't get touched at all, I suppose that would be entertaining to watch. Straight Talk Wireless, nationwide coverage on America's largest and most dependable 4G LTE networks. Jeremy says here that Retief Goosen was struck by lightning on a golf course as a kid in South Africa. I'm just curious. Does anyone check these tweets before they get handed to me? Like, did we look that up and confirm that? I mean, because anyone could just tweet us anything, and it gets handed to me, and I got 40 seconds to kill at the end of an hour, so I'm like, oh, wow, Retief Goosen was struck by lightning. Someone could just tweet.
Fact.
Exactly. Now, I'm co-signing that. Anyone in the world could just tweet us anything, and I don't know exactly.
Internet, it must be true if it's on the internet.
I really hope we have some decent editing going on here.
It's back to school time. This year, Sport Clips Haircuts will send you back in style with the prize package sure to send you straight to the head of the class. Visit sportclips.com/back-to-school for your chance to win. No purchase necessary. Ends August 25th, 2017. Must be 18 or older. Subject to official rules at sportclips.com. Void where prohibited.
My good friend, Booger McFarland. You're a great man.
It sounded good, though.
Well, you are a great man.
Thank you.
Booger McFarland is in for Golick today. And I got to tell you, I just clicked on the response and to my Titanic rant.
Yes.
And I am heartened by this because everyone agrees with me. I can't think of anything I've said in 18 years of hosting this show that has received more universal and unanimous agreement than my steadfast belief that Titanic is the most annoying movie ever made. I lost all interest in the Oscars. Best movie. It was the worst movie ever. How could it have been the best picture of the year? If any other movie was made that year, it should have beaten it for the award. And I got to tell, like Cedric right here, turning on my radio to hear Greeny yelling about how ridiculous Titanic is, probably the best start to my day possible. And there's one after another after another. Everyone agrees with me.
It took a long time to get to an inevitable end with the Titanic. Like, that's the way I sum that up. It took a long time to get to the boat going down.
Listen, I mean, there's a million jokes you could make here.
Yes,
I mean,
it
was a legitimate tragedy, so I don't want
to
make any jokes about it. But I mean the movie, by the way. Oh, and also what happened with the Titanic. So anyway, moving forward from that, which I thought was interesting, we also had the story of lightning striking, and it was actually a good teachable moment for the staff. Which is, they just handed me a tweet that said Retief Goosen was struck by lightning while on a golf course as a kid in South Africa. And it occurred to me, anyone could tweet that. Thankfully, a good job by Patrick over there. He did confirm that actually did happen, which got me thinking about South African golfers.
Right.
And it made me think that Gary Player, at the age of 82 or whatever it is he is, could get struck by lightning on the first tee tomorrow, and I would still take him to beat you in a round of golf that day. He would still beat you in a round of golf that day.
I'm sure he would probably try, Greeny, but I'm just wondering with this whole struck by lightning thing. Are you actually getting hit by the lightning, or is the lightning hitting in your vicinity? Because it sounds kind of weird that electricity could go through your body at that high of a voltage and you be okay. So I'm just wondering, with all this lightning talk this morning, is the lightning striking in the area, or is it actually striking the arm, the leg, is it actually hitting you?
Well, in the case of the pitcher, it hit him the story says that it hit him in the little metal thing on top of his baseball cap, went through his body, and then exited through his metal spikes. So the answer here, I guess, is to always be wearing metallic shoes in a thunderstorm, because that way something good might happen. We do also, by the way, have just the way Gary Player says your name.
Booga.
That's not a long enough version. I need to hear a little more of that. Booga. I now call you that sometimes also. I just like the way he said it. And I loved it when he said that having watched you swing was like watching a cow giving birth to a roll of barbed wire.
You just love that, don't you?
Okay, there's nothing funnier ever. Okay, let's move on. LeBron James. So I assume by now most people saw LeBron's series of tweets yesterday that were designed, I think, to defend his new teammate Isaiah Thomas, and in general NBA players who are free agents who leave from one team to go to another. And again, in the case of Isaiah Thomas, he wasn't. So I'll just read you the series of tweets for those of you who didn't see it. LeBron tweeted in sequence, "The burning of the jersey thing is getting ridiculous now. The man was traded. What do you not understand? And he played in a game after his sister's tragic death. Gordon Hayward paid his dues as well, and he's decided to do what's best for him and his family. Put in the work, got better, became an all-star, etc. If these guys weren't good, you guys would be the first to say, get them up out of here. Man, beat it. When we decide to do what's best for us, it's cowardly, traitor, etc. But when it's on the other side, it's business, huh? Okay, man, do what you feel is best for your profession, love, family, happiness, and continue to #strive for greatness, #salute." Now, there's obviously nothing wrong in any of that. Everything he's saying is obviously right. What this seems to have come from what I can tell, was one idiot setting fire to an Isaiah Thomas jersey. Every other Celtic fan that I saw on Twitter responding was destroying that guy because, A, Isaiah Thomas was traded, didn't leave as a free agent. B, he did go back and play after his sister's tragic death in the playoffs and stood there crying in the pregame and went out and played. And all of the obvious, and then see the act of burning a man's jersey because he chose to go from one team to another is just steadfastly ridiculous under any circumstances. So everything LeBron James said is right. There's nothing about it that I disagree with. But I do wonder if he should, if you're LeBron James,
right,
do you need to be worried about this? Do you need to be worried about one idiot setting fire to a jersey? I guess what I'm just saying is, when I was growing up, my dad was a passionate sports fan.
Right.
Okay, I didn't come by this by accident. So we would be sitting and watching the TV, and my dad would be yelling about stuff that was going on all the time, primarily announcers, which is ironic that I wound up becoming a sports announcer, because he would yell and scream to me about the announcers and all that kind of stuff, and it was just one man sitting in a living room and yelling. That's basically what Twitter is.
Yeah.
It is millions of individuals sitting in their living room and yelling. And when my father did it, no one would hear it but us, and 1 minute later, it was as though it had never happened. And the reality is, each of these individual tweets is exactly that. So if I'm LeBron James, and I get it, he's trying to stand up for his new teammate, and that's cool, and I get that when he left in the decision, he went through the biggest ever example of this, so maybe he's got a personal connection to this or a personal attachment to this that feels more significant to him. But it feels to me like the best response, I think, for a player to fans who are criticizing them for doing what is obviously in their best interest is just to ignore them completely.
You know, Greeny, I'm reminded of the great Disney movie, The Princess and the Frog, where Mama Odie says you got to dig a little deeper. And when you dig a little deeper in this story, what you find is LeBron James has held a grudge for years. And it goes back to when he left. He never responded to the fans of Cleveland. He never called them out when they burned his jersey. When he left and went to South Beach. Even when he came back, when he wrote the article, the letter with Lee Jenkins, he never called them out. He talked about everything that he could do. And finally now LeBron James seems to be letting all the frustration out. And he's using Isaiah Thomas. And everybody knows Isaiah Thomas didn't just decide to leave. He got traded. There's nothing he could do. I've been traded. You get a phone call, hey, this team wants you, you move on. So LeBron knows that. The fans know that. The fans are just using their emotion in burning a jersey to show that. But when you dig a little deeper in the story, you understand, or at least I think LeBron is finally letting out all of his emotion and all of his frustration from years ago when the fans burnt his jersey, when the fans called him out, when the fans were burning 23s across the country. And when they put the Kyrie Irving jersey down and LeBron James laid the letter that said, hey, I love you, all that good stuff, to me, he's trying to send a message. Players change teams. Players go different ways. Players move on. But this is a situation that shouldn't happen, and I'm still a little frustrated that it happened to me years ago.
The being traded part.
Being traded, burning his jersey, all that good stuff. So he's letting the grudge that he's held for a lot of years with the decision. I think he's finally letting that go, and he's using Isaiah Thomas as a conduit in this whole thing right now to let his frustration go.
That's fine. You know, if that's what he's doing, then fine. And again, I don't disagree with a word that he wrote. Everything he wrote is right, but I also think most of it is obvious. I mean, most normal, rational people understand all of that.
Yeah.
And, you know, it was Jay Billis who once said a very smart thing to me, and I think this applies in life to all sorts of things, and that is don't punch down. Like, the person who tweeted that, the person who set fire to his jersey, and you know what? You're going to do this stuff publicly. His name, from what I can tell, is Kyle Gordon. And he has since deleted the tweet because the entire world, including a ton of Celtic fans, I saw a bunch of Celtic fans tweeting back, oh, great, now they're going to blame this on all of us when just this one moron set fire to this jersey. But you're LeBron James. I mean, you're like the king of the world. I mean, Leonardo DiCaprio said it in the Titanic, but LeBron James actually is it. Right. So what are you worried about? One moron and what he thinks. That's what I'm saying is it feels to me if you're going to take the time out of your day with all the different things. I've sat and watched LeBron running up and down the court 8 times in a row, dunking a basketball. Did you see that? The video that he posted the other day?
Great cardio.
I was exhausted watching that.
Yes.
All right. The man is one of the, I don't know, 3 or 4 greatest basketball players that ever lived. He's on the verge of being a billionaire. He has business interests that are actually revolutionary. He may wind up changing the paradigm for athletes in America off the court even more than he does on the court. He's extraordinarily socially conscious. He's putting thousands of kids in Akron into college, from what I can tell. He's got a lot of things going on. In my opinion, he shouldn't be worried about whether one moron is setting fire to a jersey or not.
It matters, though,
that's the advice I would give to him if he asked me, and of course, I think he probably will.
Greeny, as a former athlete, here's the thing I can tell you. No matter what we say about not hearing the noise or not hearing what fans think or writers think, we hear. And we all want to be liked. So LeBron James is looking at one fan as a microcosm of what a lot of fans think. And he's saying to himself, you know what? When I left to go to South Beach, this is what they thought of me. Kyrie Irving, Isaiah Thomas, the trade goes down. Fans are thinking this. All players want to be liked. So you're asking yourself, why is he punching down? Why is he reaching? Because the people that he's punching down to are his fans, the people that watch the NBA. And as an athlete, we want to be liked. We want people to like us. It doesn't matter how much money you have. It doesn't matter whether you're a billionaire or not. As an athlete, as somebody who is an entertainer, for people to watch, we want to be liked.
But he is liked, ridiculously liked. That same fan who said fire to the jersey, if he ran into Isaiah Thomas in a restaurant tomorrow, would be begging to take a picture
for an autograph.
with him.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
He'd be like, hey, man, I love you. Thanks for everything you did. Can we take a picture?
Yeah.
This is nothing. This is meaningless nothing.
Right.
And as far as the rest of it is concerned, look, I'm 1/1,000,000th as famous as Isaiah Thomas is, right? Absolutely. But if you ever look on my Twitter feed, I get a million terrible things tweeted at me every single day, every minute of every day. Should I be responding to all of them?
Does it bother you?
No.
Oh, that's my point.
Why would it bother me?
Greeny, when you're an athlete sometimes and you're entertaining people.
I'm entertaining people. I'm not an athlete, but my job is to entertain people.
Well,
I sit here on television every single day. I talk and people react.
Right.
And some of them react very negatively.
You have mastered the art of not letting it bother you. I'm telling you, some athletes, Greeny, it bothers them. Early on in my career, my first 3 or 4 years in the league, it bothered me. Hey, you are terrible. You were a bust as a first-round pick. Yeah, I don't hear any of that. But there are times when you're alone, you think about those things. You think about what fans think. Does it really matter? Does it make you go through your day and change your routine? No. But when you're an athlete and my job is to play to a certain level and entertain you, and I'm not doing that, it bothers you. And I think LeBron James is no different. We all have feelings. He wants to be liked. And I guarantee he's afraid that this one fan is just a small portion of others that don't like him. And when you're a player that has been through some of the trials and tribulations that LeBron has been through, leaving Cleveland, going to Miami, leaving Miami, coming back to Cleveland, now everything's going on with Kyrie, LeBron wants to be liked. He is being portrayed right now as a guy that, you know what, whether you believe he or Kyrie, one of them can't get along with the other one somehow. Who are the fans going to believe? Like right now, we haven't heard from either one of them. All LeBron has tried to do is say, you know what? I wish him nothing but the best. I'm welcoming IT in. Players want to be liked. We're sensitive at some time, Greeny, and our feelings always get the best of us. And I guarantee you, once LeBron is able to do a press conference and talk, and somebody asks him, he's like, you know what? Just venting. Just kind of letting things go. Because you get emotional about your craft, about your job, about your family seeing all these tweets. He has kids. His kids are probably seeing all these different things. It's a lot of built-up frustration, I think, with LeBron from years of this stuff.
I understand that completely, and I think that is true largely of a lot of very famous people in any walk of life. And so what I would say, because now you're older and you're wiser.
Correct.
How old are you?
39.
Okay, so you're older and wiser than you were when you were 24 and
Correct.
people were saying you were a bust as a first-round pick. And now you have maybe the most controversial job in America, which is you opine about college football.
Yes.
And you do it and frequently talking about teams from the Southeastern Conference.
Yes.
And if there's one thing that I've learned doing this job is that there are no people in the world crazier than college football fans
Correct.
in the southeastern part of the United States. So every time you say anything on this show, the first time you and I ever talked to each other, you came on here and said you thought LSU needed to fire Les Miles. I have to imagine your Twitter feed went crazy.
It did.
Went crazy. Do you sit and read every single thing everyone is writing to you? Do you respond to it? Do you worry about what people are saying?
I don't worry about what people are saying, but I do take a temperature of how people feel about what I've said.
That's different. You're using it as I use Twitter as a means of
as a measuring stick.
Exactly.
Right,
completely.
right.
I totally agree. I've said this many times. A little lesson for people who are interested in broadcasting. I will keep my if we're getting to a topic, I will keep my mentions open, and I will see. And if as Mike and I start talking about something, if I get 4 responses to it immediately, I move on because I know we're not touching a nerve. No one cares.
Right.
If I see 1,000 responses fly in immediately, I don't care what they say. People are interested.
Correct.
So we keep going.
Yep.
So that's not what I'm talking about.
Right.
But I'm talking about, Booger, you're an idiot. You don't know what you're talking about. You are a lousy player, and you don't know anything about football, and you don't know. And Georgia is going to win that this year. Yesterday, we had Herbie and Des Howard in here, and I asked them who's going to win the SEC, and he mentions Alabama, and I forget one other team gets mentioned, and I'm flooded with people saying, how could you have not told them Georgia is going to win the SEC? Oh, Auburn. They mentioned Auburn.
Yeah.
How could you, Greeny, you know nothing about football. Yeah. How could you have not stopped them in the 40 seconds that you were having this conversation and tell them Georgia should win? So should I be worried about? I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like that is as significant as one guy burning Isaiah Thomas's jersey. I get it. There's something very personal and distasteful about a jersey that you have worn proudly, that you have made popular, having someone set fire to it. I get it. I get that the imagery of that has got to be painful. I understand that. But I also think that in the day and age in which we live, if you're going to be a star of that magnitude, you just don't need to worry. This is just an older person trying to pass on a little bit of wisdom to someone who doesn't need it, but he doesn't need to be worried about that. He doesn't need to be worried about
that. And Green, also there, you have to understand that LeBron James has taken on a role in which we haven't seen our other stars in basketball or football take on. He's the father figure. Okay, he's the guy that's speaking out on socioeconomic issues. He's the guy that's speaking out on race-related issues. He's speaking out. And so here's a guy also that's speaking for other players right now. Maybe Isaiah Thomas doesn't have a foot to stand on and come out and say, maybe he's too emotional. Maybe Kyrie Irving doesn't want to come out and say anything. Maybe there are other players who are going to be traded, who may want to speak out, and they may not feel they have the platform to do so. LeBron James has done something off the basketball court that, to me, a lot of athletes should take heed to. He's taken on the role of saying, you know what? I'm the biggest, baddest guy in the league, both on and off the field. I have a voice. When I speak, people listen. Whatever it is I'm speaking about. And so now he's speaking not only for himself, which I think he's doing going back to the decision.
Yeah.
I think he's speaking for a lot of players who are going to change teams throughout the years. Hey, these guys don't deserve this. All right? He got traded. He didn't just go in there and say, hey, let me get out of here. He got traded. So let's have a little compassion, even though theoretically you shouldn't care what the fans think. But I'm telling you, man, as an athlete, we think about these things, Greeny, and we all want to be liked in some form or fashion.
I totally get it. And I am frequently accused of being the biggest LeBron apologist in the world.
Right.
So let me make it as clear as can be made for anyone who doesn't know. That's the side of this I'm on. I'm on his side.
Right.
Everything he said is right. I think almost everything he said is obvious. Many of the things that he is doing right now, again, in the community, how many kids is he sending to college in Akron?
Tons.
Look at the way from the opening of the ESPYs to all the things that he stood up for. All those things are incredibly important, incredibly meaningful. And that's what I'm saying. If it almost just feels to me, again, this is advice that he does not need from me, but if he is wasting 1 second of energy worrying about whether one fan in Boston is upset with Isaiah Thomas, when everyone recognizes that including 99.9% of the fans in Boston recognize that was an idiotic thing to do.
Correct.
But if you're wasting 1 second of your energy on that, then that is 1 second of your energy that would have been better served worrying about literally anything else. That's what I'm trying to say.
The Isaiah Thomas jersey burning, I agree. What about when they burn LeBron's jersey? What about that? What
I
was
get
your
that
feeling
bothering him. I get it. I get it. I understand he has a terrible attachment to that thing. I mean, the entire city of his youth where he grew up.
Exactly.
And I understand why it was important for him to come back and make good on that and everything else. I understand all of this. Everything he's ever done makes sense to me.
Right.
So that's what I'm saying. And if he's just trying to stand up for his new teammate and considers that sort of a way of being the leader of his team, hey, man, come on over here, I got your back, or whatever it is, it's all good. But just as a general rule, it feels to me like somehow the fact that everyone has a voice with Twitter doesn't necessarily mean that everyone's voice matters, right? Like, you should not be worried about what every individual person is saying, because that person 15 years, 20 years ago was just a person sitting and yelling and screaming, and you didn't hear it, and thus it didn't matter. So the fact that they now have typed it and pushed send on it doesn't make it matter anymore. Does that make sense?
Well, Greeny, it does, because a lot more people can see it. The person you're talking about in their living room that was just sitting there screaming at the TV, the only person that heard them was the cat sitting next to them in the four walls. Like, nobody else heard them. Now, you send one tweet. I don't care whether somebody has 10 followers. If one of those followers retweets it to someone else who has thousands, that one person screaming with the cat and the dog sitting next to them in the living room, now millions of people can see that. So it's a little different now. It's way different than the guy sitting at home in the living room.
I get it. I guess what I'm saying is, for the sake of the sanity of all of these incredibly famous people, they would be better off, in my opinion, treating it like it was just a guy yelling in his living room. Because at the end of the day, that's how meaningful it is. That same guy, I promise you, that same guy, if he runs into LeBron James walking down the street in L.A. tomorrow, is going to go running and screaming and trying to get a picture with him, and is going to tell everyone he knew and post a picture to all those same followers, which will get retweeted by a lot more people, that, oh, my God, I ran into LeBron James. It was the greatest moment of my life.
Me and the king here.
Exactly right. It's exactly right. Exactly. Hey, selfie. Hey, LeBron. I can't. Hey, selfie. That's pretty much what it'll be.
Hey everyone, Mike Golick here. Support for the Mike and Mike podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Chances are you're confident when it comes to your work, your hobbies, your life. Rocket Mortgage gives you that same level of confidence when it comes to buying a home or refinancing your existing home loan. Rocket Mortgage is simple, allowing you to fully understand all the details and be confident you're getting the right mortgage for you. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Mikes. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLS, consumeraccess.org number 3030.
Guys don't really talk about antiperspirant. Despite that, 91% of Dove Men Plus Care users recommend it. Here's what they said.
It blocks the, perspiration, I think is the fancy word.
It's comfortable. It smells nice. My girl likes the smell.
Well, it's
hard.
I think it's quite masculine. My underarms aren't the worst thing at the gym.
It's kind of like the Hoover Dam from my armpits, I guess.
Dove Men Plus Care antiperspirant. Tough on sweat, not on skin.
Mike and Mike, Booger McFarland is here. Been looking forward to this. It's been a busy summer for the National Football League and a lot of their players and everything as we get set to start a new season. There are some big stories on the table, and here to shed some light on some of those is the executive director of the NFL Players Association, DeMaurice Smith. D, it's Greeny and Booger today. How are you this morning?
Hey, Greeny, Booger. How are you guys? I'm great. I'm in Hartford, Connecticut. Can almost see you from here to drop my son off at college, and it's all good.
That's got to be tough. I mean, I'm 2 years away from that with my oldest, and I can't even fathom. Is this your oldest?
This is my youngest. So he's up here. He's on a lacrosse scholarship. He's the baby. Okay, it's a little rough. I'm not going to lie. It's just a little rough.
I mean, I can't. I have a lot of friends who are doing it this week. Anyway, listen, the best to you and your family first and foremost, of course. A couple of different things I wanted to get into this morning. And let's start with Colin Kaepernick, because everyone is aware of the issues that surround him. But I am not expert enough to fully understand what, if any, legal remedies there may be. So I guess it's a two-part question. Can the union help Colin Kaepernick try to get a job? And if so, how?
Two-part question, very short show. The reality is there's always legal options. They depend heavily on the facts, and they depend on, whether this is something that the player and his union want to pursue. And we've remained in touch with Colin's representatives, and that's an ongoing conversation. We've respected their decisions. We'll continue to work with them. If and when he wants to pursue other things, we will look at those things and give him the best advice that we can have.
D, as it pertains to Ezekiel Elliott, obviously the appeals hearing is coming up here pretty quick. What are you guys expecting to come from that, and do you think that there's an opportunity that the suspension may be reduced?
Well, we don't ever shy away from representing the interest of our members. It's our duty, and it's something that I take seriously, and I think that it's our job, just like anybody else in a legal proceeding, that they have lawyers that vigorously represent them. So we will head into the hearing. I understand that there was a ruling from the person who's overseeing the hearing early this morning. I'll take a look at it, consult with our lawyers. But look, this is not a perfect system, and one of the reasons that, for the third year in a row, we're entering the season talking about something other than football is because we don't have a neutral arbitrator like we had in the Ray Rice case. We don't have a collectively bargained discipline system where it's transparent. And I think anytime you have a system that's overseen by a former lawyer from the National Football League and a system that's not transparent, you're going to necessarily end up talking about issues on Mike and Mike about that rather than talking about the start of the season.
Yeah, that is the reality. We get it. And this one turned kind of ugly. You're obviously aware of the comments that the league made suggesting that your side had made attempts to discredit Ezekiel Elliott's accuser. They called that shameful. How do you respond to those?
Greenie, I think we did.
Yeah.
And I think we responded, probably around, 12, 13 on a 10 scale.
Yeah.
I've been a prosecutor for a long time and prosecuted rape cases. And I never thought that the lawyer on the other side who was doing his job or her job representing their client was engaging in some sort of shameful act. It was factually not true. It was a new low, or at least one of several new lows for the league, and we responded the way that we did. But look, I mean, we have a system that the owners have decided that they didn't want to collectively bargain. The irony is the owners that specifically blocked neutral arbitration in 2011 had cases involving their players later on. But when you don't have a collectively bargained system, when a system isn't transparent, and when the hearing is going to be overseen by a lawyer from the National Football League, you end up in public fights and you end up talking about all sorts of issues instead of focusing on, what should be an exciting time and will be an exciting time about the beginning of the season.
Yeah, and fans will probably move on to that. D. Smith is with us here, but when you've got that, you called it a new light. It felt really bad in that instant between the two of you, the two sides, and then you talking about a work stoppage being a virtual certainty, and Eric Winston is talking, and with some comments that I think were largely misinterpreted, but talking about the future of the league in ways that made people a little bit uncomfortable. It feels from the outside as though this relationship has never been worse between the players and the owners. Would you say that is a fair characterization?
No, I wouldn't say that, only because, Boogers has been around and you've been around for a very long time. You're talking about a group of people that did lock us out in 2011, right? You're talking about the National Football League was the one who had a rheumatologist who led the concussion research for years. We know that it took a group of former players to sue the National Football League over head injuries. So I'm not sure that it would be fair to say that the tensions have never been worse. This is the reality of two extremely strong organizations that have two separate constituencies. Roger represents the owners. I represent the players. But at the end of the day, are we ever going to shy away from representing the interest of our players and their families? And the answer is no. So when you have to sue the National Football League to make sure that our players get workers' compensation, I consider that something that we shouldn't have to do. When we have to sue the National Football League to make sure that doctors are treating our players as patients, I'm not sure that's something we should have to do. But I don't apologize for being aggressive when it comes to the health, safety, and financial interest of our players.
D. Smith, as far as you're concerned with the CBA, Cyrus Mary is a guy that's come up here who's both well-respected inside and outside of the league that could be somebody to oppose you for the executive director position. Are you prepared to openly debate him as we approach March of 2018 with an open process on all the issues?
It sounds like you've been talking to Cyrus Mary. That's fantastic.
Well, no, D, I'm a former player that's just concerned about the league, D.
We have and I'm a person that's got the job of making sure that our players are safe, and we both take those things seriously. We have a process, and I think that if there's someone out there, like there has been before, who wants to run for the job, that's fine. I wake up every morning knowing what my job has to be, and look forward to it every morning.
It's D. Smith with us here on Mike and Mike. I just need to circle back quickly to the Colin Kaepernick issue because we didn't get quite as much out of it as I wanted to. So you say you're prepared to help him in whatever ways that you feel like you can. And it doesn't sound to me like you're saying he's asking for that help from the union right now. In what ways could you help him outside of the obvious? And what is there that can be done in this?
Yeah, look, I mean, the reality of any of these situations is, the union has always stood ready to help Colin in any way. And I went out very early, I think the day after he knelt last year, and made sure that he understood, that his camp understood, that our players understood what their rights were, that we were going to defend the rights of any player who wanted to make a free expression that didn't interrupt the game. We stand ready to do anything and to take every action that he wants us to take. I mean, our job as the union is to continue to work with the player and to make sure that we respect the player's wishes and work with his agents to accomplish their goals. And when it comes to potentially taking legal action, it's to advise them and to certainly support their position in any way. And I mean, I'm being a little bit deliberately coy because I think it's important to respect the conversations that we have that are confidential and private between his representatives and the union. But there won't be a day, and there hasn't been a day, when this union hasn't stood up for its players, and will continue to do so.
Understood. Listen, D, most importantly, best of luck to you and your family as you send. I can't even say it out loud. It makes me so sad thinking about it. Your kid's off to college.
It's getting close for you too.
2 years away, and
yeah.
There's just no way I'm going to survive that experience. But one
way
or another,
great.
yeah.
You know what you love. You'll love the fact that by the time that day comes, that I know you've done a good job getting them ready for school, and you'll hug them, cry a little bit, but then root for them, right?
I guess, but
if you would have seen the look on his face just now, D,
I'll be so catatonic that I just can't imagine the experience one way or the other. But best of luck to you and your family, D. We'll talk again soon. Thanks very much.
Thanks, D.
Thank you, guys.
Take care. That's DeMaurice Smith on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Get instant gold status at Shell. Join the Fuel Rewards program now at fuelrewards.com/gold. I have so many friends and family. My nephew is going to college this week or next week. I have so many friends that are going through that. And I lived through it with Golick, with all three of his kids going off to college. That's how long we've been doing this. They're all adults now. One of them is married, and yet I was sitting here when all of that happened. And look, I get it. It's a natural progression in life and all of that, and there's something wonderful about it.
Yeah.
But my goodness, I'm going to have a tough time with that. Very tough.
You sound like my wife right now. And like my kids are 9 and 6, and one's in 4th grade, one's in 1st grade. And on the first day of school, she's like, oh, we got to go and we got to take the pictures and all that. I'm like, they're just going to school. And she's like, let's go. And she's got signs made that says, hold them up, has your name, has like your favorite interest, what's your teacher's name, what grade you're going to. And I'm like, did we have to pay for this? Like, is this something we had to buy? Like, what are we doing here?
In the meantime, there were a couple of different things in there that we talked about with D that I'd like to react to. So we'll do that next.
Sports fans anywhere can earn a nationally recognized degree from Penn State. Online. Whether you're starting or finishing your degree, study where and when it's convenient for you. Choose from more than 125 programs to become a top prospect in your field and advance your career. Learn more at worldcampusinfo.com. Penn State World Campus, a world of possibilities. Online. Visit worldcampusinfo.com today. That's worldcampusinfo.com.
Twitter reaction, again, on the LeBron James discussion and on our conversation with D. Smith. And I always get these. Dan tweets, the discipline system was collectively bargained. The NFLPA just agreed to a lopsided deal, and now they are complaining. Listen, I'm going to offer a defense of DeMaurice Smith and that element of the CBA, okay? And you tell me if this is a fair analogy or not. I don't know very much about playing poker. I know the rules, but I probably wouldn't be very good at it if I tried to play it very hard. But I can tell you right now, you could put me in the World Series of Poker, and I would win all of it. I would wind up the last one standing at the last table with all the money and on ESPN2 and everything else if you told me I had 4 aces in every hand. If I had 4 aces every single time, I'm going to win the World Series of Poker. And that's what that negotiation is. Whoever is negotiating on the owner's side is holding 4 aces, and DeMaurice Smith is not. And whoever replaces him will not be. And you know what? The owners know it. The players know it. The owners know the players know it. And the players know the owners know the players know it. So that is a non-winnable negotiation. So they have to pick their battles and try as hard as they can to win the things that affect the most of them. And this discipline business, while it is a significant one for a very small handful of players, it certainly doesn't affect all of them, and it doesn't affect nearly as many of them as many other issues. So I do not criticize them for picking the very few battles that they felt they had a chance to win. Because at the end of the day, if they try to win everything, they are going to get crushed even worse than they did.
You know, Greeny, to your point about a negotiation you can't win, the players won it for a long time with Gene. Okay, the players Greeny, the players were getting 56% of the revenue.
Yeah, but that's
at its highest point, they were getting the majority of the money. Like the deal that Gene had for the players, and even Gene realized this, that we had reached a peak that we'd probably never get back to. The key would be once you start negotiating down. So once we start giving money back, what do we get in return? And I think the lion's share of the players felt like we gave money back and we didn't get a lot in return. Yeah.
Well, how about all these practices now that aren't there, and you're not smashing heads twice a day, every day in training camp and all through the season, which in the long run is going to have a far greater impact on every player in the National Football League than any of the other things we're talking about.
Greeny, the owners could care less about practice. They could care less about practice.
The players should care.
The players care about it, but was it enough to give back 8% of revenue? That's hundreds of millions of dollars. Like, that's the thing that's going on right now amongst the players. And that's the reason why I asked D. Smith about having an open debate with someone that wants to run against him.
Are all those players going to hold out? Are all those players, or are Joe Montana and Mark Gastineau and Lawrence Taylor going to cross the picket line again?
I agree with you.
That's what happened.
And I agree with Golick. And I think the NFL owners have put the players in a situation now that the players can't win. So now D. Smith or whoever the next executive director is has to figure out a way to play with the rules or play the cards that you're dealt, realizing that you're not going to cross that line. That you are going to cross that line. The players don't have a war chest. They're not going to hold. D. Smith talking about we're going to hold out in 2021. Nobody's holding out. Like, nobody's going to do that again. So how do you figure out how to negotiate the best deal? And I think right now the players are realizing that this current deal that we're under as players is not a good one. So how do you make the best of it? And I think that's the challenge for D. Smith or whoever else is out there, because the players are getting hosed right now. And I think everyone will agree with it.
Yeah.
And the owners know, and Roger knows that. And that's the issue. And they're just dangling it out there. The owners could care less about practice, what day you report. March 15th, April 15th, the owners don't care.
I understand that.
They just know that you're going to show up and play on a certain day in the fall.
That's why they let you win that one.
Exactly.
And you will win. You will win exactly as many as they let you. And that's the reality of the power